Hey there, Walt here from Walt in PA, and I'd like to welcome you to. Well, I'm not really sure what I'm welcoming you to. I don't know if this is the usual Walt in PA motovlog style thing, or if this is a recreation of the motorcycle adjacent podcast, or if it's something entirely different. But what I can tell you for sure is I'm going to have a cigar, I'm going to have a bourbon, and I'm going to do a lot of talking. So, if any of those things offend you, please feel free to move along. No hard feelings. For anyone that wants to stick around and hear me gab, we'll do so in just a second. All right, so let's get into it. So, I guess to kick things off, it is getting into my absolute favorite time of year for riding. The dog days of summer, those hot mornings and hot afternoons and hot evenings seem to be behind us. We've got some cool weather rolling in. You go out in the morning, it's kind of borderline brisk. Then it warms up in the afternoon, getting into the low to mid 70s. Then it cools down in the evening. That is the time of year that I absolutely love riding my motorcycle. I It is not fun to start out your ride in heat and humidity, get to where you're going drenched in sweat, only to sweat through the entire place where you're at. If you're going for lunch somewhere, you're sitting there at the table, sweating the whole time, and then throwing all that gear back on and riding home, sweating the whole way. It's just very uncomfortable. I don't enjoy it. I do it because I enjoy hanging out with friends. I enjoy riding, but that whole sweating the entire time with beads of sweat coming down your forehead in your helmet, in your full face helmet, it's just it's not as fun as this time of year. I mean, the only downside to riding now here in Pennsylvania is we start getting into hunting season. Deer start moving. They become much more of a concern than they were just a couple of months ago. So that is something we'll have to look out for. But I am very much looking forward to riding for the next couple of months. It's going to be glorious. So to catch you up a little bit, this summer hasn't been great. I haven't been doing a whole lot of riding. I don't remember whether I mentioned it in the last video I recorded, but I started a new job. Fortunately, I don't have to go into work every day, which means that I get to ride to work every now and again, which is kind of nice. It's a nice change of pace from being in the car. I work out in an area where there's lots of backcountry roads to ride on. So the ride to and from work is actually kind of pleasant. It's roads that I would ride for fun anyway. So that's a huge plus. The big downside though is I had mentioned the heat this summer has been unreal. It's either abnormally hot or it's been really wet. So it's limited the number of times I've been able to ride into work. And on the days that I can ride, to be honest with you, it kind of sucks, especially in the heat. So I've got the MT-09 and I've got the Ninja 400. And in order to get my stuff to and from work, I have to strategically pack a backpack. I'm putting a change of clothes in there just so. I'm putting my lunch container in there just so. My tumbler of coffee with the screw top lid, it goes in there just so. I need a hat to cover my helmet head when I get there, and everything has to be packed perfectly. Otherwise, it won't zip. So, we have this game of Tetris that goes on before I can even leave the house. I ride into work and I sweat the whole way. Then I get to work. I have to unpack that backpack, get changed in the bathroom. And then, because I've already worked up a sweat, I'm sweating for the first 2 hours at my desk, only to finally start to get comfortable late in the day and then have to repeat the whole process. Unpack the backpack, put the riding gear back on, repack the backpack with my regular clothes, ride all the way home, and I wind up sweating the whole way. And then I've been getting stuck, or before summer vacation started, I was getting stuck behind school buses. Oh, and that's horrible when the temperatures are 100 plus. And I, I kid you not, I got stuck behind a school bus, and it must have stopped a dozen times within 3/4 of a mile. It was just stop and wait and bake in the sun. Get up to a grand total of about 12 miles an hour, stop, wait, and bake in the sun. Just rinse and repeat so many times down this little stretch of like rural road. And it was miserable. I wound up finding a different route home from work. It wasn't a problem during summer vacation, but it's something I have to keep in the back of my mind when it's warm and school's in session. Got to be careful which way I go. So, that whole backpack thing has been kind of a deterrent. I don't like riding so much to and from work because of having to pack all that gear. So at one point in time, I was strongly considering getting a third motorcycle. I had toyed around with the idea of maybe selling or trading in the Ninja 400 on a sport touring bike, just so that I had luggage to put all that stuff into and make it a little bit easier for me. And I started going down the path of research. So doing my research, I was pretty much set on wanting a Yamaha FJR 1300. I really like the idea of getting the what is that? The GT9, the sport touring version of the MT09. But I also didn't want to have like two almost identical bikes. That just doesn't make sense to me, and I would really hate to get rid of the MT09 just to get the GT9, because I just enjoy that bike so much. It's not the one I want to let go. So I was looking at something different. The FJR 1300, I found one locally at Martin Moto, and I went over to look at it, and it was beautiful. It was in fantastic shape. It was a 2013 with, I want to say, like 20,000 miles on it. If I didn't know that it was pre-owned with 20,000 miles on it, and it was at 2013, I would have never guessed it. It was just in pristine shape. It was beautiful. The problem, it had a sign hanging on it that said deal pending. So I wound up leaving with no chance at that bike, but I started looking at some things online, mostly Facebook Marketplace, and was toying around with the idea of getting something else. The FJR 1300 is what I wanted, but they're really not readily available on Facebook Marketplace, at least not in my area. If you want a Kawasaki Concourse, they're all over Marketplace. If you want an older Goldwing from like the early 2000s, again, all over Facebook Marketplace. There are a handful of Ducati STs, which I'm really not crazy about the look of, and they're a bit older. And there was another one that kind of caught my eye and piqued my interest, which was a Triumph Sprint. I believe I don't remember whether it's 1,000 or 1,100 cc's, but before I went and looked at it, I started looking at some reviews online, and the downside of that bike was that a lot of the reviews said that of the sport touring class, it leaned more towards the sport side of things, so the riding position wasn't overly comfortable, and it was kind of compact, and that's not really what I was looking for. I want something that leans a little bit more towards comfort and touring in that sport touring class, so the Sprint was kind of out. And that's kind of where things died. Not long after that, I was on my way to work one day in my car. I had a 2013 Ford Escape, and I broke down on the way. I went around a corner, and suddenly the car started to whine, and I started to worry. And then I went down the road about a half a mile, and then it started to buck lightly, almost like I was kind of tapping and letting off the accelerator. I was on a road that ran parallel with a river, and there was just nowhere to go. I had to wait. I had to go a couple of miles to cross over, go over a bridge, and then I could start to loop back home, and I was hoping that I could limp it all the way back. I made it 2-3 miles, and I came to a traffic light. I hit a red light. I came to a complete stop. There was a gentle little pop, and then the car was like glass, like perfectly smooth. No roughness at all. You couldn't even tell it was running. The light changed, Green, I let off the brake, I pressed down on the accelerator, and the engine just revved, and I didn't go anywhere. And I was like, uh-oh, we got a problem. So I put it in park, nothing. Back into drive, nothing. I tried putting it into select so that I could select the gear, nothing. There was a guy behind me who started beeping at me, and I gave him the old, like, I don't know what the hell's going on here shrug. He pulled up beside me and he's like, hey, is everything all right? I said, I've got no forward and no reverse. So he wound up pulling off to the side of the road. Traffic was backing up behind me, so he sort of cleared the way so that I could roll in neutral back down the hill and into the driveway of this little business complex. And that's where the car stopped. I put the emergency brake on. I couldn't even get it in the park. And I waited for a tow truck. Tow truck came, took me home. I had my mechanic look at the car, and he's like, I don't know what to tell you. The transmission fluid looks fine. It's at the right level. It doesn't look awful. This is a sealed transmission. There's not really much that I can do. I'm not a transmission shop. You really should take it somewhere that knows what they're doing and specializes in transmissions. He said it was kind of like a dying art. There's not very many places around that really get into transmissions anymore. So I started calling around, and I talked to one shop that came highly recommended. And the guy was just like, I really hate to break this to you, but the transmission in your Escape is like our most popular transmission for replacement. He said we can replace it for you, but it'll be used, and I have no idea how long it's going to last. It might last you the life of the car. It might last a couple of months. Like, like that's the bargain option, and that'll set you back about $3,000. The other option is we rebuild the transmission with all new components that are better than OEM, and we can guarantee you unlimited mileage for the next 2 years, trouble-free. But that's going to set you back about $5,500. And man, that killed any thought of getting another motorcycle. Just completely dead in the water. I wound up doing a lot of back and forth and some research, and finally decided that the car wasn't worth putting that kind of money into, especially with it starting to like just nickel and dime me with small little repairs right now. I just kind of figured that if I dumped all that money into it, I'd still have these little problems popping up, and it would just kill me overall. So I got rid of it, and I wound up buying a 2021 Toyota RAV4 for a hell of a lot more money than $5,500. So a new motorcycle is not in the cards anytime soon. Now, coincidentally, the transmission going out in my Escape happened about a week after I had to have Martin Moto come pick up the MT-09 and bring and truck it in for service. So I came out here one day, and it was a nice day. I thought, I am definitely going to ride to work today. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to take the MT-09. I go out, I put the key in the ignition, I turn it, I hear the fuel pump like it's supposed to. I hit the button to start it. It sounded a little slow, but the bike turned over and turned and turned and turned and turned, and it wouldn't fire. I held that button so long that the battery was just dying, and I thought, well, maybe it's just the battery. I haven't ridden it in a while. I have a trickle charger set up on both bikes, so I just ran an extension cord, plugged the bike in, and then hopped on the Ninja 400, took that to work. Then the following morning, I pulled the trickle charger off. I pulled the battery tender off the MT-09, tried to start it, and again, it just turned and turned and turned and wouldn't fire. So I called Martin Moto, explained the situation to them, told them, look, you're going to have to come get it. I've got no way of getting it in. Coincidentally, it was due for a recall service. There was an issue with the CPU programming. From what I was reading, it was creating stalling issues. I got a recall notice from Yamaha. I asked them about that when I called, and they said, well, it's possible that could be leading to a non-start issue. However, it's not listed as one of the symptoms of this repair, but we can absolutely take care of it for you. Basically, they told me that they would do a a diagnostic service on it. I had to pay for like 2 hours, and they would bill me, like whatever it took. If they could fix it in 15 minutes, they'd bill me for 15 minutes. But anything beyond 2 hours, we'd have to talk some more to make sure that everyone was comfortable with the process and how much it was going to wind up costing to get this problem troubleshot, and repaired. A couple days later, they called me up and told me that they believe it was the battery, that they pulled the battery out. They ran a diagnostic on the battery, and it was coming up like 70%, which kind of confused me because if it trickle charged overnight and the bike was turning over like it was supposed to, why wouldn't it fire? So I don't know whether maybe it wasn't delivering enough voltage to start the bike, but enough to turn the starter. I don't know. They replaced the battery, and the bike has been working great ever since. It cost me like $500 and some for the battery, a little bit of diagnostic time, and I had them do a state inspection and a chain service on it. I could have done the chain service myself, but it was there, and I figured it was just easier to just have them handle it. It was only like $50 or something like that, so I just had them do it. And I've been kind of bouncing back and forth between the MT-09 and the Ninja 400 on the occasion when I can get out and ride, which hasn't been a whole lot as of late. Hasn't really been a whole lot of riding all summer, to be honest with you. I did get out and ride with the guys a handful of times. Riding with Goofy is always a blast. Rode with Scott a couple of times. Rode with Trekkie once or twice this year. Hopefully we can get together and do some more of that. One of the things that we've been doing is we meet up somewhere, we ride for a couple of hours, and then stop off somewhere for lunch, and usually we break off. In years past, we've always done a lunch stop at Red Robin somewhere because it's easy and it's consistent, and there's a really good chance that the food is going to be good for everyone. Very low risk place. But this year we've been trying to mix it up with more local spots, more like I'm gonna call them mom and pop restaurants, but kind of along those lines. And the food's been really good, and I've been getting exposed to places I had never been before. So I'm hoping that we can do that a few more times before the weather turns cold. So earlier, as if like the hits just keep coming. So the other day, I guess it was like Tuesday or Wednesday, I took my dog out, and it was beautiful. It was one of those mornings where it was actually a little brisk. It would have been great hoodie weather, throwing a sweatshirt on. Had my dog out for a little bit, went back in the house to work, and I spent the next couple of hours looking out my window at this beautiful outside scenery, and I really wanted to take advantage of the weather. So when lunchtime rolled around, I threw my motorcycle gear on. I hopped on the Ninja 400. I knew that it needed gas, and I hadn't ridden it in a little while, so I wanted to fill up the tank and just sort of put it through its paces a little bit locally. The plan was to ride for about 45 minutes. I put a fresh battery in my GoPro, got everything going, set off, and I recorded a motovlog for about, I don't know, 30 to 40 minutes. I would have chopped it up a whole bunch, but I did, let's call it a half an hour of recording, telling you about some stuff I have going on. And on my way home, I sort of exhausted myself. I ran out of things to talk about, and I reached up to turn the camera off, which I always do with my left hand because my right hand's on the accelerator, on the throttle. So I reach up to the chin bar where the camera is. There's no camera. I'm like, what is going on? Why can I not find the camera? I'm like touching the helmet, can't find it. So I lean over and I look in the mirror, and I see the camera is dangling. It's just like hanging down here. It was hung on by a tiny little strip of double-sided tape, and the mic cable was giving it just enough tension that the camera didn't completely fall off the helmet. So I found a place to pull over. I took this picture, and then I proceeded to unplug the mic and rip the camera off the rest of the way, stuffed it in my jacket, and rode home. So the only time I had to record a motovlog was kind of lost. I looked at the footage, and most of it is the camera like looking at my jacket and my arm because it's just kind of hanging off to the side. So completely unusable. And I guess that kind of gave me the inspiration to sit down in my garage and turn the camera on and just talk, to kind of fill you in on what's been going on, and to tell you about something kind of exciting that's going on that has absolutely nothing to do with motorcycles. So I'm doing this video with this cigar because it has a tie-in. Many, many years ago, I started a cigar website with a friend of mine. It's called StogieReview.com. I think I've mentioned it a couple of times throughout the years on the Walt NPA channel. And in the very beginning, it was only meant to share suggestions between the two of us. He would try a new cigar and he would write something up and share it with me, and then I would try a cigar and write something up and share it with him. Well, through the wonders of Google, people started finding these cigar reviews just by happenstance, and the website grew and grew and grew. We got really heavy into video cigar reviews at one point in time, and that's kind of what we became known for. So the website ran from 2006 to present, with people sort of coming and going, as far as like the editorial staff goes, if you want to call it that. As life happened and people got busy, they came and went, and there was maybe 8 of us over the years that were involved. The guy that I started the website with, Jerry, several years back, decided that life was just too busy and he had way more things going on. He just wanted to retire from it. So he turned everything over to me, and it has been more or less dormant for the last several years. And that kind of brings us into present. I guess it stopped really being active in 2019 or so, maybe 2020. It really sucks to say that it's been dormant for 5 years, but I guess that's the reality. There was very little being posted there in the last 5 years. So fast forward, I still hang out with friends. We all smoke cigars, we hang out at a social club. Every once in a while, we'll have a drink together. But one of the things that we do on a recurring basis is we all get together and have a good time. So every Tuesday, there's a group of 9 of us that try to get together. Actually, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. I can rarely make a Thursday, so I'm mostly a Tuesday guy. So there are 4 of us that get together on a regular basis. It's me, Jim, Eric, and Mark. And then there are 5 other guys that sort of come and go as their schedule allows. It's been fun because you never really know who's going to be hanging out on a given night. One night it might be the 4 of us, and then the following week the stars could align and everyone's out, and it is just a blast. So one day, the 4 of us are hanging out at the social club, and I don't know what we were talking about podcasts, something we had seen. We were laughing about something, big uproarious laughter, something funny. And then I believe it was Eric said, we should start a podcast. The 4 of us could just totally do this. It would be fun. As kind of like a throwaway comment. I don't think he was actually serious about it. And I said, well, that can be arranged. And he sort of looked at me funny. He says, what? Really? What do you mean? And Jim, who's sitting across from me, kind of goes, yeah, we could definitely do that. You know who you're talking to, right? And he kind of nods his head down at my travel humidor, which I should have brought out. It has the Stogie Review logo on top of it. Not only that, but he knows that I do the Walt and PA thing. Not very frequently, but I try. So there was some back and forth about, like, could this really happen? Would it be possible for us to do a podcast, and would it even be worth it? So we're kind of joking around about it. The following week rolls around. It comes up again. The following week we're hanging out, and it comes up in passing again. So it starts to become clear that there's some genuine interest and curiosity here. And I decided, well, let's test out that theory. My garage isn't an ideal space. It's a garage. It's not beautiful. I don't have like the cigar lounge atmosphere going on here. I got motorcycles over there. I got like cleaning supplies and lube and oil and whatnot on the shelf, and just stuff everywhere. And I have electric out here, but I don't have heating and air conditioning. So in the winter, it gets really cold. In the summer, it gets really hot. The saving grace is having power. I can turn on, I don't know, I've got one, two, three, four, five fans that usually circulate enough air to make it tolerable out here when it gets really hot. So I wasn't sure how this was all going to work. Like, are all these fans going to create so much noise that it's not worth it? Is it even feasible? So I recorded a couple of test episodes just to test the waters and see if it was possible. And the result was better than I anticipated. And I owe a lot of credit to that to John from Road Reality. A couple of years ago, I swapped out helmets. I went from using an HJC F70 to a Voss. I forget which model Voss it is, but the FJC or the HJC was super quiet. It was a great helmet. It's heavy, but great helmet. The Voss, while it was lighter and it looked better and more comfortable, the thing was so damn noisy. It was really hard to record a motovlog in it. So one day John's telling me like, "Hey, you should check out this plugin for DaVinci Resolve. It'll really help you pull out all of that road noise, and it'll make your recording sound a lot more like it did when you had that quieter helmet." So I was able to use that plugin to remove all of the fan noise that goes on, and the end result was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So I recorded a couple of test episodes, a couple more test episodes, sort of test the waters, start posting on Stogie Review again, see if there was any interest there, see if breathing a little life into it was going to sprout something, and things went better than anticipated. So I ended up dumping some money into the podcast production. I bought a Zoom PodTrack P4, which is a 4-channel mixer. And I thought, well, that'll be perfect for the 4 of us. We'll come out, we'll do the podcast. The mixer will do everything we need it to do. Done deal. So I get the mixer set up. The 4 of us come out. We record. It works. And then we exceeded the capabilities of the mixer alarmingly fast. So the next time we set out to record, we had a 5th person. The 5th person was kind of sitting off to the side. You could barely hear him. The week after that, I had 6 people out here. Now, 2 people were unmiked and 2 people were difficult to hear. The week after that, we're back to 5. The week after that, we've got 7. Oh, it was maddening to try to make all that work. So I'm like pulling audio off the camera. I've got the pod track that's working just fine. I set up an auxiliary recorder. I'm trying to splice all this stuff together, and it was driving me nuts when we had more people than microphones. But the conversations were so much fun. I wanted to find a way. I wound up buying a PodTrack P8, which has 6 mic inputs, and it has the ability to bring in a virtual host, or a virtual person through a Skype connection or Zoom or whatever we decide to use. So now I've got 6 mics, which should cover us under most circumstances. If a 7th person comes in, they're just going to have to tuck in nice and tight beside someone and use and share their microphone, because I am tapped out. I'm not investing any more money into equipment right now. It just is what it is. And that whole thing has been loads of fun. We're calling it the Smoke and Steel Podcast. So if you are interested in cigars or just listening to a bunch of guys bullshit over random stuff that has sometimes absolutely nothing to do with cigars, you should definitely check it out. I'll put a link in the video description down below for you to check that out. So anyway, this podcast, when I decided to do it, there was one thing that I wanted to accomplish, and that was to reproduce the sort of conversations you have in a cigar lounge. Not everyone has access to a cigar lounge, and I've heard that many, many times. And people seem really interested in the sort of community that comes with it. You get an opportunity to talk to people from all sorts of social walks of life. I remember years ago, I was sitting in a cigar lounge in Reading, Pennsylvania, and I was just talking to some random guy who was in the lounge. And then after about 45 minutes to an hour, he got up and left. And another guy was there. He's like, "Hey, do you know who that guy was?" And I said, "No, not really. I was just kind of shooting the shit with him." It turns out he was a judge in the courthouse, a couple blocks away. Then another time, maybe a year later, I walk into the lounge and there's this guy sitting there that I sort of recognize, but but I don't know where I place him. And we're talking and laughing, and then later on, I find out, well, that's Dr. Oz from that show, My Strange Addiction. And he was telling stories about these wild patient interactions that he had had over the years, like for the TV show, not like private patients, but it's just like he was kind of giving us some behind the scenes stuff from the show, which was kind of fun and entertaining. And it's just kind of been things like that I really enjoy about hanging out in cigar shops. You get to meet all these different people. One day you're talking to a judge, the next day you're talking to a janitor, and you have cigars in common, and you just talk about whatever, life. And I'm trying to replicate that with this podcast, and I feel like we're doing a really good job of that, with such a wide range of off-topic banter and people coming and going. Our large group, as schedules allow. You never really know what's going to come out of any given episode, but it's been loads of fun. So if you're interested, again, link down below. I think I have pretty much exhausted everything I have to say. I kind of enjoy this, more so than the moto vlogs. There's only one camera to contend with. I don't really have to fight with audio issues or anything. So I don't know. I kind of want to maybe breathe a little life back into the Motorcycle Adjacent podcast, the thing I used to do in my shed with no electric and battery operated fans, which was real fun in the summer. And because I've got this big setup, maybe I can bring in some virtual guests, or hell, some of the guys are local. Maybe I can even get them to come out and hang out in the garage, as long as they don't mind some cigar smoke, because I'm having a cigar. Anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. I will catch you in the next one.